cold morning in the port of Newhaven, England. Waves lapped against the hulls of ferries that had just arrived from France. No one paid any attention to the white truck. It had stopped quietly at the cargo inspection area, as it had done hundreds of times before. The driver showed no emotion, just handed over his paperwork as usual. But this time, something made the customs officer feel uneasy. When the rear doors opened, inside were refrigerated containers. Nothing unusual at first glance. Foie gras, duck breasts, top-notch delicacies. But as the inspection team began to dismantle the floor, each piece of metal was pried up. Each layer of material was peeled away. What was revealed underneath made the team hold their breath. This was more than just an unusual shipment. This was the spark that sparked a years-long investigation, involving coded secrets, names no one dared to mention, and a network of operations so sophisticated that it was almost perfect. And now you're about to know the whole truth. In 2019, Michael Keating, a 56-year-old man from Uxbridge, West London, was a household name outside of criminal circles. He did not look like a drug dealer. No tattoos, no flashy cars, no flashy displays. But underneath that facade, Keating ran a sophisticated international drug smuggling network, using the encrypted platform EncroChat to communicate and coordinate every transaction in the shadows. Under the alias Bestrocket, Keating oversaw every detail, from the choice of drivers, routes, to the method of concealing the drugs, without leaving a trace through conventional communication channels. Also part of that network was Jean-Pierre Lebel, 48, a resident of the Isle of Wight, who was responsible for the direct transportation of the drugs. Lebel was behind the wheel of the white lorry carrying the consignment of foie gras and duck breasts, which left the port of Dieppe, France, and headed for the port of Newhaven, England. Another co-defendant, Tanvir Hussain, 46, of High Wycombe, acted as a logistics man, having bought the lorry with Lebel in his name to conceal the drugs. And there was Matthew Keating, Michael's younger brother, who, although not directly involved in this particular shipment, was involved in a conspiracy to import ketamine as part of another part of the operation. None of them resembled old-school criminals. They were highly organized, technologically savvy, and maintained a veneer of legitimacy. But it was precisely this normality that made them so dangerous and so hard to detect, so much more than ever. There was no bloody clash that sparked the case, no traitor who betrayed his accomplices. Instead, the root of the network was a quiet but profitable operation, drug trafficking using elaborate disguises and encrypted transactions. Michael Keating, the leader, was not just a smuggling kingpin. He was the planner, the builder of a closed-loop transportation system where each participant knew only part of the big picture. The goods came from Europe, mainly via the France-UK route. Foie gras, duck breasts, gourmet foods, all used as perfect covers to hide the drugs, passing customs with a look of legitimacy. Choosing expensive, easy-to-control, unsuspecting goods, Keating and his accomplices avoided the noisy and crude smuggling models often seen in movies. Every step is calculated. The vehicle is legally registered, the route has a commercial history, the driver has no criminal record, all as if it were a simple food delivery job. The goal is not just money, it is operational safety, the ability to replicate the model in a regular delivery chain, a system that can operate undetected for years, unless one link, however small, slips out of alignment. And that began when the lorry carrying foie gras rolled into the port of Newhaven on what seemed like an ordinary morning. On the morning of November 13, 2019, at the port of Newhaven, East Sussex, England, a Mercedes Sprinter refrigerated truck, which had just left the port of Dieppe, France, was randomly selected by Border Force for inspection. The vehicle, according to the documents, was loaded with frozen food, including foie gras and duck breast, destined for a commercial address within the UK. The shipment appeared to be completely legitimate, with no unusual signs in the paperwork or itinerary. However, experienced customs officers noticed something strange in the structure of the floor of the vehicle. Upon closer inspection, they discovered an elaborate hidden compartment beneath the floor, a discreet subcompartment that could only be opened with specialized tools. Inside the secret compartment was 97 kilograms of pure cocaine, carefully packaged in airtight plastic bags, surrounded by insulation and odor-proofing material, to avoid detection by sniffer dogs or conventional scanners. The driver, Jean-Pierre Lebel, was immediately arrested at the scene. The car and all the evidence were handed over to higher authorities. The National Crime Agency, NCA, was notified and quickly took over the case due to its seriousness and organized nature. During initial interviews, Lebel did not reveal any further information of value, but the car gave investigators a clue. It had been purchased less than a month earlier and was under the name of Lebel himself, along with another individual named Tanvir Hussein. The discovery of a sophisticated storage compartment, the large weight of cocaine, and the elaborate disguise of the shipment led investigators to suspect that this was not a single smuggling operation. A wider operation began, involving border security forces and organized crime teams. The ensuing investigation not only uncovered a drug trafficking operation, but also a complex underground network powered by state-of-the-art encryption technology, centered on an individual using the alias Bestrocket on the EncroChat platform. After discovering 97 kilograms of cocaine hidden under the floor of a lorry at the port of Newhaven, National Crime Agency, NCA, investigators did not jump to conclusions or take sweeping action. They understood that Lebel, who was driving the lorry, was unlikely to be the mastermind given the elaborate cover-up. Instead, the case was passed to the Organized Crime Squad, which began a trail that lasted more than a year. The focus of the investigation was to find out who was behind the planning, funding, and operation of the entire operation. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: leaked data from the encrypted platform EncroChat. Known as the European Criminal Communication System, EncroChat allowed users to text and make calls without being tracked. But in mid-2020, a covert operation led by French and Dutch intelligence services had secretly installed spyware on the platform. Millions of previously classified messages were extracted, decoded, and shared with police in many countries, including the UK. From that massive database, a series of coded messages alluding to the transport of cocaine from France to the UK were carefully analyzed. Standing out among the countless conversations was an account nicknamed Bestrocket, the one who clearly played the role of coordinator, knowing information about the goods, schedules, and recipients. He did not appear at the scene, did not directly contact the driver, but gave precise orders down to the details, from the location of the stash to the delivery schedule. Investigators began to track Bestrocket by combining the location of the device, the time of sending the messages, and behavioral factors. A series of messages containing phrases such as "transfer 1311" and "Foie Gras to go tonight" suspiciously matched the time the car was discovered at the port of Newhaven. Through further analysis, they found that Bestrocket was regularly communicating from the Uxbridge area using a specific EncroChat phone model that the network identification system had recorded. Eventually, using mobile location data, financial records, and verbal behavior patterns, investigators identified Bestrocket as Michael Keating, a calm-looking, middle-aged man with a criminal record for financial fraud. From there, the organization's structure gradually became clear. Keating was at the center, overseeing the entire process, while other links, such as Lebel, Tanvir Hussein, and Matthew Keating played roles in execution, vehicle preparation, route operation, and cargo monitoring. Information from EncroChat also helped map out the communication between members. There were messages referring to the second shipment of the month, implying that the shipments were multiple, cyclical, and not a single one. In addition to cocaine, other conversations showed that ketamine had been discussed, along with similar methods of concealment, suggesting that the syndicate was replicating the model to bring a range of illicit drugs into the UK market. The investigation went beyond uncovering a network and revealed a worrying trend. High-tech crime was increasingly moving away from the traditional street gangster image. Instead, operators were hiding behind keyboards, operating with the precision of a data analyst, and using clever financial systems to launder money and hide profits. Keating's network was a prime example: quiet, non-violent, but extremely dangerous because of the cleanliness of its operations. When Bestrocket was confirmed as Michael Keating and his links to Labelle, Hussein, and other EncroChat accounts were cemented through hundreds of encrypted messages, the authorities knew it was time to act. But the arrest was not rushed. For almost a year after the discovery at Newhaven Port, investigators had quietly assembled evidence, tracking transactions, meetings, and even financial irregularities. The arrests of Keating and his associates did not come with a siren or a dramatic raid like in the movies. They were quiet but precise raids. Keating's home in Uxbridge, Hussein's residence in High Wycombe, and Matthew Keating's address in Rickmansworth were all searched at the same time. At Michael Keating's home, police seized a large amount of cash, more than £50,000, along with a notebook detailing EncroChat accounts, passwords, and records of undeclared transactions. The digital devices were sealed and sent to the Digital Forensics Department for further analysis. When the case came to trial at Southwark Crown Court, it quickly attracted media attention because of the scale of the operation, its high-tech methods, and the potential danger. Prosecutors presented a wealth of digital evidence, from messages from Bestrocket discussing how to hide the goods in the floor of a lorry, to a series of text messages instructing Labelle to keep to a schedule, warnings about customs checks and secure communications after each delivery. Keating initially pleaded not guilty, but faced with overwhelming evidence and a strong legal strategy from the prosecution, he was forced to change tack. However, because of his leadership, coordination, and sophistication, Michael Keating was sentenced to 24 years in prison for conspiracy to import Class A drugs, a serious sentence that reflects the nature of transnational organized crime. Jean-Pierre Labelle, the driver of the lorry, was a key player but was seen as an executive arm rather than a planner. He pleaded guilty in October 2023, which resulted in a reduced sentence. However, for his role in transporting nearly £8 million worth of cocaine, Labelle was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Tanvir Hussein, who bought the lorry with Labelle, was convicted of participating in a conspiracy to smuggle and sentenced to 10 years. Although he did not drive or operate the lorry, his role was found to be essential in the preparation phase, including finance and logistics. Matthew Keating, Michael's brother, was convicted of a separate conspiracy to import 80 kilograms of ketamine, another controlled drug. Although he was not involved in the Newhaven incident, he was tried in the same court because of his direct links to Michael's organization. Matthew was sentenced to 7 years and 6 months in prison. In sentencing, the judge described the case as deeply disturbing in that the defendants had used advanced technology, clever systems, and a veneer of legality to conceal a criminal offense of such magnitude. The judge also stated that when technology is used for evil, justice responds with equal sophistication. Foie gras, a luxury delicacy once considered a symbol of culinary class, has become the disguise for one of the biggest drug busts ever made at the Port of Newhaven. What seemed high class and harmless hid a cold truth that today's criminals no longer wear grim faces, but rather wear suits, hiding behind keyboards and lines of code. The case is more than just a major blow to the drug market. It is a reminder that technology, in the wrong hands, can be the perfect cover for the perfect crime, and that in an increasingly sophisticated world, the alertness of those on the front lines, from customs officers to data scientists, may be the last piece of the puzzle that keeps us from a silent disaster. What makes someone like Michael Keating, no rebel, no bully, choose that path? Ambition? Is it the feeling of invincibility that comes from hiding behind technology? Or is it simply because he believes that no one will ever find him? The system has found him. But what about you? Do you think justice has been served? Do you believe that there are other Bestrockets still operating out there? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you find this story worth a wake-up call, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more real, emotional cases and profound lessons.